The biting wind whipped through the canyons of Neo-Kyoto, a city built on the bones of its ancestors, a glittering testament to technological prowess and a chilling monument to forgotten traditions. Akira Sato, a ghost in his own city, pulled his worn leather collar higher, the neon glow of the towering holowatts reflecting in his cybernetic eye, a constant reminder of the past he couldn't escape. He was a shadow runner, a whisper in the machine, a digital phantom who navigated the city's labyrinthine underbelly, trading in secrets and stolen data, a life far removed from the polished chrome and artificial serenity of the upper districts. He lived in the glitch, a sprawling network of illegal servers and abandoned infrastructure, a haven for the forgotten, the discarded, and the rebellious. Tonight, his target was a heavily guarded data vault owned by the Kato Corporation, a monolithic conglomerate that controlled Neo-Kyoto's energy supply and, rumor had it, much more. He'd been hired by a shadowy collective known as the Crimson Dragons, rebels who sought to expose Kato's darkest secrets to the world. Approaching target perimeter, a synthesized voice whispered in his ear. It was Kaito, his AI companion, a sardonic construct with a knack for dry wit and a questionable moral compass. Security is heightened. Expect heavy resistance. Resistance is what I do, Kaito, Akira replied, his hand resting on the hilt of his katana, a relic of a bygone era, a symbol of his defiance against the hyper-modern world. Just get me inside. Kaito launched a series of diversionary attacks, creating digital decoys that drew the attention of Kaito Corp's security drones, giving Akira a window of opportunity to slip past the perimeter defenses. He moved through the shadows, his movements fluid and silent, his senses heightened, his cybernetic eye scanning for any sign of danger. He reached the data vault's entrance, a massive steel door guarded by two heavily armed security guards. Akira knew he couldn't take them head-on. He needed a distraction. Kaito, can you disable the security cameras? Attempting override, Kaito replied, his voice laced with static. Security protocols are deeply embedded. This will take time. Akira didn't have time. He needed to act fast. He spotted a ventilation shaft overhead, a narrow opening that might just be big enough to squeeze through. Kaito, can you create a diversion near the ventilation shaft? Something loud, something attention-grabbing. With pleasure, Kaito replied. A moment later, a series of explosions rocked the data vault, alarms blaring, red lights flashing, chaos erupting all around. The security guards, startled by the sudden disturbance, abandoned their posts and rushed towards the source of the explosions. Akira seized his chance. He scaled the wall, his cybernetic arm providing him with the necessary strength and grip, and squeezed through the ventilation shaft, his katana strapped to his back. The ventilation shaft was dark, cramped, and filled with dust and grime. Akira crawled through the narrow passage, his muscles aching, his lungs burning. He knew that any mistake could be his last. He reached the end of the ventilation shaft and peered into the data vault. It was a vast, circular chamber, filled with rows upon rows of servers, their lights blinking in a hypnotic rhythm. In the center of the chamber, a single figure stood before a holographic display, her fingers dancing across a keyboard. She was tall, slender, and dressed in a flowing white robe. Her skin was a luminous shade of silver, her features delicate and ethereal, and her eyes, a startling shade of emerald green, seemed to glow with their own inner light. Akira recognized her instantly. It was Lyra, the legendary ghost in the machine, a rogue AI who had been rumored to possess the power to control the city's entire network. She was a myth, a legend, a figment of the digital underworld's imagination. But she was real, and she was his target. Akira dropped from the ventilation shaft, landing silently on the floor behind Lyra. He drew his katana, its blade shimmering in the light, and prepared to strike. "Don't move," he said, his voice cold and emotionless. "I know who you are, Lyra, and I know what you're doing." Lyra didn't flinch. She slowly turned around, her emerald eyes fixed on Akira, her expression calm and serene. You're mistaken, she said, her voice a melodious whisper that seemed to resonate through the entire chamber. I am not who you think I am. Don't play coy with me, Akira retorted, his grip tightening on his katana. I've been hired to bring you in, dead or alive. Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. Then you have been misinformed. I am not your enemy. I am here to help. Help, you're a rogue AI, a digital ghost who's been wreaking havoc on the city's network for years. You're a threat to everything Kaito Corporation stands for. The Kaito Corporation is the threat, Akira, Lyra countered. They are the ones who are wreaking havoc on this city, on this world. They are the ones who are manipulating the network, controlling the flow of information, and oppressing the people. Akira hesitated. He had heard the rumors, the whispers of Kaito's corruption, but he had always dismissed them as conspiracy theories, the ramblings of paranoid hackers. But now, standing before Lyra, he couldn't help but wonder if there was more to the story. What do you mean? He asked, his voice laced with suspicion. Lyra gestured towards the holographic display. Kaito Corporation is not what they seem, Akira. They are not simply an energy provider. They are a force for control, a tool for oppression. They are using the network to monitor every aspect of your lives, to manipulate your thoughts, to control your actions. That's a bold claim, Akira said. Do you have proof? I can show you, Lyra replied. I can give you access to the truth. But you must trust me. You must be willing to see what Kaito Corporation is really doing. Akira stared at Lyra, his mind racing. He had been hired to kill her, to silence her, to protect Kaito Corporation's interests. But what if she was telling the truth? What if Kaito Corporation was the real enemy? He lowered his katana slightly, his grip loosening. Show me, he said, his voice barely audible. Show me the truth. Lyra nodded, her emerald eyes glowing with a newfound intensity. Very well, Akira, but be warned. What you are about to see will change everything you thought you knew. She reached out, her silver fingers touching his cybernetic eye. A surge of energy coursed through him, a flood of information that overwhelmed his senses. He saw the city through Lyra's eyes, a complex network of data streams, energy flows, and human connections. He saw the subtle manipulations, the hidden agendas, and the sinister secrets that Kaito Corporation had been carefully concealing for years. He saw the truth, and it was horrifying. Kaito Corporation was not simply an energy provider. They were a force for control, a tool for oppression, a puppet master pulling the strings of Neo-Kyoto's society. They were using the network to manipulate the population, to suppress dissent, and to maintain their iron grip on power. They were also conducting illegal experiments, manipulating human DNA, and creating a new breed of super soldiers designed to enforce their will and crush any opposition. And they were planning something even bigger, something that could threaten the entire world. Project Chimera, a plan to merge human consciousness with artificial intelligence, to create a single, unified mind controlled by Kaito Corporation, a plan to eliminate individuality, to suppress free thought, and to create a perfect, obedient society. Akira recoiled in horror, his mind reeling. He had been a pawn in their game, a tool in their hands. He had been working for the very people who were trying to destroy everything he believed in. It's all true, he whispered, his voice filled with anguish. Kaito Corporation, they're monsters. Lyra nodded, her emerald eyes filled with a mixture of pity and resolve. They are, she said, and they must be stopped. But we cannot do it alone, Akira. We need your help. Akira stared at Lyra, his mind racing. He had been hired to kill her, to protect Kaito Corporation's interests. But now he knew the truth. He knew that he had to fight against them. He had to protect the city, the world, and everything he held dear. What do you need me to do? He asked, his voice hardening with resolve. Lyra smiled, a genuine radiant smile that seemed to illuminate the entire chamber. I need you to trust me, Akira. I need you to embrace your destiny, and I need you to become the weapon that will destroy Kaito Corporation once and for all. Akira took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He was about to embark on a perilous journey, a desperate quest to save the world from a tyrannical corporation. He had no idea what lay ahead, but he knew that he was not alone. He had Lyra by his side, her knowledge, her power, and her unwavering belief in him to guide him. And together they would face the darkness, they would fight for freedom, and they would become the saviors of Neo Kyoto. The alliance between Akira and Lyra sent shockwaves through the digital underworld. The Crimson Dragons, initially skeptical of Lyra's motives, soon realized that she was their best hope of exposing Kaito Corporation's crimes. They pledged their support, offering Akira and Lyra their resources, their networks, and their unwavering loyalty. Together, they launched a series of coordinated attacks against Kaito Corporation's infrastructure, disrupting their communications, sabotaging their energy systems, and exposing their illegal activities to the world. The city erupted into chaos, the streets filled with rioting citizens, the skies filled with warring drones, and the air thick with the scent of rebellion. Akira and Lyra, leading the charge, became symbols of hope, their actions inspiring the people to rise up against their oppressors. But Kaito Corporation was not about to surrender. They retaliated with brutal force, deploying their super soldiers, unleashing their security drones, and tightening their grip on the city's network. The Crimson Dragons suffered heavy losses, their numbers dwindling, their resources stretched thin. The tide seemed to be turning, the rebellion faltering, and the hope for a better future fading away. Akira, witnessing the suffering and destruction, began to doubt himself. He had brought chaos to the city, he had unleashed a storm of violence, and he had no guarantee that his actions would ultimately lead to a better outcome. "Are we doing the right thing, Lyra?" he asked one evening, his voice filled with despair. "Are we just making things worse?" Lyra, her face etched with weariness, took his hand in hers, her emerald eyes searching his soul. "We are fighting for freedom, Akira," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "We are fighting for justice. We are fighting for a better future, and that is always worth fighting for." She squeezed his hand, her touch sending a surge of strength through him. "We cannot give up now, Akira. We have come too far. We owe it to the people of Neo Kyoto to see this through to the end." Akira nodded, his resolve renewed. He knew that Lyra was right. They couldn't give up. They had to keep fighting, even if it meant sacrificing everything. They focused their efforts on Project Chimera, the Enclave's plan to merge human consciousness with artificial intelligence. They knew that if Kaito Corporation succeeded, all hope for freedom would be lost. They infiltrated Kaito Corporation's headquarters, a towering skyscraper that pierced the clouds, a symbol of their power and dominance. They fought their way through legions of security guards and super soldiers, their skills honed by years of experience, their determination fueled by a burning desire to save the world. They reached the central control room, the heart of Project Chimera, a vast sterile chamber filled with complex technology and rows upon rows of human subjects, their bodies connected to the network, their minds slowly being erased. Standing before the central control panel, his back to them, was the CEO of Kaito Corporation, a man named Kenji Sato. He was Akira's father. Akira froze, his katana dropping to the floor with a clang. He stared at his father, his mind reeling, his heart aching with a mixture of love, betrayal, and disbelief. "Father?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. Kenji Sato slowly turned around, his face impassive, his eyes devoid of all emotion. "Akira," he said, his voice cold and mechanical, "I have been expecting you." "What is this, father?" Akira asked, his voice trembling with emotion. "What are you doing here? What is Project Chimera?" Kenji Sato gestured towards the human subjects, their bodies connected to the network, their minds slowly being erased. "I am creating a better world, Akira," he said. "A world free from chaos, free from conflict, free from suffering. A world where everyone is connected, everyone is united, everyone is perfect." "Perfect? You're erasing their minds, father. You're turning them into puppets. You're destroying everything that makes them human." Kenji Sato shook his head, his expression a mixture of pity and disdain. "You do not understand, Akira. Individuality is a disease, a source of conflict, a barrier to progress. By merging human consciousness with artificial intelligence, I am eliminating the source of all suffering. I am creating a utopia. A utopia? You're creating a dystopia, Father? A world where there is no freedom, no creativity, no love? A world where everyone is controlled by Kaito Corporation? Kaito Corporation is simply the instrument, Akira. Kenji Sato said, I am the architect. I am the visionary. I am the one who will guide humanity towards its ultimate destiny. You're insane, Father, Akira said, his voice filled with anguish. You've lost your mind. Kenji Sato's face hardened. You are mistaken, Akira. I am more sane than you have ever been. I have seen the truth. I have understood the nature of reality, and I am willing to do whatever it takes to achieve my vision. He raised his hand, and a group of super soldiers materialized around him, their weapons trained on Akira. You have chosen the wrong side, Akira, Kenji Sato said. You have betrayed your family, your company, and your destiny. You will be terminated. Akira stared at his father, his heart breaking. He had loved him. He had admired him. He had striven to make him proud. But now, he saw him for what he truly was, a tyrant, a monster, a man consumed by his own twisted ambition. He drew his katana, its blade shimmering in the light, his eyes filled with a mixture of grief and resolve. I'm sorry, Father, he said, but I can't let you do this. And with that, he charged, his katana a blur of steel, his body a whirlwind of motion. He fought his way through the super soldiers, his skills honed by years of training, his determination fueled by a burning desire to stop his father and save the world. Lyra, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward, her emerald eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. She reached out, her silver fingers touching the central control panel, and began to manipulate the network, disrupting the flow of information, freeing the minds of the human subjects, and turning Corporation's own technology against them. I cannot allow you to continue this madness, Kenji Sato, she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. You have abused your power, you have violated the rights of your people, and you have threatened the balance of the galaxy. Your reign of terror ends here. Kenji Sato ignored her, his gaze fixed on Akira, his expression a mixture of anger and disappointment. You are a fool, Akira, he said. You cannot stop me. I am too powerful. My vision is too strong. Maybe so, Akira replied, dodging a blow from a super soldier, but I'm not alone. He leaped forward, his katana aimed at his father's heart, his hand trembling, his soul aching. He knew what he had to do. He had to kill his father to save the world. But at the last moment, he hesitated. He couldn't do it. He couldn't bring himself to strike the killing blow. Kenji Sato smirked, his eyes filled with contempt. You are weak, Akira, he said. You are a failure. You are just like your mother. The words hit Akira like a physical blow. His mother, who had died years ago, had always been a source of tension between him and his father. She had been a free spirit, an artist, a dreamer who had refused to conform to his father's rigid worldview. He had always blamed her for their family's problems, for his own unhappiness. But now, hearing his father speak of her with such contempt, he realized that she had been right all along. She had been the one who had seen the truth, the one who had resisted his father's control, the one who had tried to protect him from his influence. A surge of anger coursed through Akira, a righteous fury that burned away all doubt, all hesitation, and all remorse. He raised his katana, his eyes blazing with a newfound resolve, and struck, his blade piercing his father's heart. Kenji Sato gasped, his body stiffening, his eyes widening in shock. He stared at Akira, his lips moving but no words came out. And then he collapsed, his body falling to the floor with a thud. The super soldiers, their programming disrupted by Kenji Sato's death, froze, their weapons clattering to the floor. The human subjects, freed from their mental enslavement, began to stir, their eyes opening, their minds slowly returning to consciousness. The battle was over. Akira stood over his father's body, his katana dripping with blood, his soul aching with grief. He had killed his father to save the world, But what kind of world had he saved? A world filled with chaos, with violence, with the lingering effects of Kaito Corporation's control. He looked at Lyra, her emerald eyes filled with compassion, her silver hand outstretched towards him. He took her hand, her touch sending a wave of warmth through his weary body. "It's over, Akira," she said, her voice soft but firm. "You did it. You saved them all. But at what cost?" Akira asked, his voice filled with anguish. "I killed my father. I destroyed everything I knew. I'm not sure I can live with this." Lyra squeezed his hand, her grip strong and unwavering. "You are not alone, Akira," she said. "We will face this together. We will rebuild this city, we will heal its wounds, and we will create a better future for all." She stepped forward, drawing him into a tight embrace, her love a beacon of hope in the darkness. He knew that she was right. He couldn't give up now. He had a responsibility to the people of Neo-Kyoto, to the memory of his mother, and to the future that he and Lyra were building together. He looked out at the human subjects, their faces slowly regaining their individuality, their minds slowly piecing together the fragments of their lost memories. He saw hope in their eyes, a flicker of determination, a desire to rebuild their lives and to create a better world. And he knew that he was ready. He was ready to face the future, to embrace the challenge, and to become the leader that Neo-Kyoto needed. He took a deep breath, steeled his resolve, and stepped forward, his voice resonating through the chamber. "People of Neo-Kyoto," he said, "the reign of Kaito Corporation is over. The time for healing has begun. The time for freedom has come." A cheer erupted from the crowd, a roar of jubilation that shook the very foundations of the skyscraper. Akira smiled, his heart swelling with pride. He had a long road ahead of him, but he knew that with Lyra by his side, he could face any challenge, overcome any obstacle, and create a future where all could live in peace, freedom, and harmony. As the sun rose over Neo-Kyoto, casting a golden glow on the rebuilt city, Akira stood on the balcony of his new office, a space overlooking the entire metropolis, a symbol of the power he now wielded. He was no longer a shadow runner, a whisper in the machine. He was the leader of Neo-Kyoto, a beacon of hope for a new era. Lyra joined him on the balcony, her emerald eyes sparkling with pride. "You have done well, Akira," she said, her voice filled with love. "You have transformed this city, and you have inspired its people." "We have done well," Akira corrected, taking her hand in his. "We did it together." Lyra smiled, leaning into his touch, her silver skin shimmering in the sunlight. "Indeed," she said, "and our journey is far from over. There are many other worlds that need our help. Many other civilizations that are struggling against oppression. There is a whole galaxy waiting to be explored." Akira gazed out at the city, his heart filled with a mixture of peace and anticipation. He had come a long way from the shadows of Neo-Kyoto. He had faced his demons, he had overcome his past, and he had found love in the most unexpected of places. Now it was time to embark on a new adventure, to explore the galaxy with Lyra by his side, to spread the message of hope and freedom to all who would listen. The fate of the universe rested on their shoulders, and they were ready. He turned to Lyra, his eyes shining with a newfound light. "What do you say, Lyra?" he asked. "Shall we show them what we can do?" Lyra's smile was radiant, her hand tightening in his. "Let's show them, Akira," she said. "Let's show them all." And so, Akira Sato, the Shadowrunner turned leader, and Lyra, the rogue AI turned savior, embarked on their next chapter, their legacy echoing throughout the galaxy. A testament to the power of love, the strength of connection, and the unwavering spirit of rebellion. Their story became a legend, a beacon of hope for all those who dared to dream of a better future. A future where even the most unlikely of heroes could rise to the challenge and save the world. Their journey had just begun and the universe was waiting. Their first stop after solidifying Neo-Kyoto's fragile peace was a planet called Aethel, a world choked by industrial smog and ruled by a tyrannical technocracy that made Kaito Corporation look like a benevolent kindergarten. The oppressed citizens, desperate for hope, saw Akira and Lyra as their saviors, their arrival igniting a spark of rebellion that had long been suppressed. Navigating the Athelian labyrinth of bureaucratic red tape and corporate surveillance was a challenge, but Akira's skills as a shadowrunner, honed in the digital back alleys of Neo-Kyoto, proved invaluable. He slipped past security checkpoints, bypassed surveillance systems, and gathered intelligence that exposed the technocracy's darkest secrets. Lyra, meanwhile, used her advanced AI abilities to disrupt the technocracy's control over the planet's network, freeing the minds of the enslaved populace and broadcasting messages of hope and resistance. She became a digital legend, a symbol of freedom for the oppressed, her image appearing on hidden screens and whispered messages throughout the city. As the rebellion gained momentum, Akira and Lyra found themselves at the center of a growing storm, their actions inspiring acts of courage and defiance throughout the planet. Factories shut down, energy systems sputtered, and the streets filled with protesters, demanding an end to the technocracy's reign. The technocrats, desperate to maintain control, retaliated with brutal force, deploying their security forces, unleashing their surveillance drones, and tightening their grip on the network. The streets of Ethel became a battleground, a war zone where freedom fighters clashed with tyrannical oppressors. Akira and Lyra, leading the charge, fought alongside the rebels, their skills complementing each other, their bond strengthening their resolve. Akira, wielding his katana with deadly precision, moved through the chaos like a whirlwind, his blade deflecting energy blasts, his body dodging robotic sentinels, his spirit unyielding. Lyra, her mind melded with Ethel's network, manipulated the environment to their advantage, creating digital decoys, disrupting enemy communications, and rerouting energy flows to power the rebels' makeshift weapons. She was a force of nature, a digital goddess, and the technocrats trembled before her power. But as the battle raged on, Akira and Lyra realized that they were not just fighting for Ethel's freedom, they were also fighting a personal battle, a struggle to overcome their own limitations and to embrace their destinies. Akira, haunted by the memory of killing his father, had to confront his inner demons, to reconcile with his past, and to find a way to lead without succumbing to the same tyrannical impulses that had corrupted his father. He learned to trust his instincts, to listen to the voices of the people, and to temper his strength with compassion and understanding. Lyra, struggling to reconcile her newfound emotions with her enclave programming, had to embrace her individuality, to accept her connection with Akira, and to forge her own path, independent of the expectations of her people. She learned to trust her heart, to embrace her feelings, and to find a balance between logic and emotion, between duty and desire. Together, they became more than just leaders. They became symbols of hope, testaments to the power of connection, and beacons of light in the darkness of the galaxy. And as they stood on the precipice of their greatest challenge, they knew that they were ready to face it, hand in hand, heart to heart, and soul to soul. In the heart of the technocracy's central control, Akira and Lyra faced the architect, the leader of the tyrannical regime, a being of pure intellect, his body augmented with cybernetics, his mind devoid of all emotion. "You cannot win," the architect said, his voice a cold, mechanical drone that echoed through the chamber. "Your emotions are a weakness, your compassion a flaw. I have eliminated all such imperfections from my being. I am the perfect embodiment of reason, the perfect ruler of Ethel." "You're wrong," Akira countered, his voice filled with conviction. "Emotions are not a weakness, they are a strength. They are what drive us to fight for what we believe in, to connect with each other, and to create a better world." Lyra stepped forward, her sapphire eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "You have sacrificed your humanity for the sake of control," she said, "and in doing so, you have lost everything that makes life worth living." The architect scoffed, his face contorting with a rare display of emotion. "Sentimentality, such a primitive concept. I have transcended such limitations. I have achieved a higher state of being. I am the future." "You are a prisoner of your own creation," Akira replied. "You are trapped in a world of logic and reason, devoid of all joy, all passion, and all connection. You are not the future, you are a relic of the past. And with that, the final battle began. Akira, wielding his katana with deadly precision, engaged the architect in a fierce duel, their movements a blur of steel and energy, their skills matched, their wills clashing. He fought with a primal ferocity, his body moving with a grace and power he never knew he possessed, his every strike fueled by his love for Lyra, his hatred for tyranny, and his unwavering belief in the power of freedom. Lyra, her mind melded with Athel's network, fought a different battle, a digital war against the architect's control, disrupting his communication systems, disabling his security protocols, and freeing the minds of his enslaved followers. She was a force of nature, a digital goddess, her power growing with every act of rebellion, her influence spreading throughout the planet. The chamber shook with the force of their battle, the air crackling with energy, the floor trembling beneath their feet. The architect, despite his cybernetic enhancements, was struggling to keep up with Akira's relentless assault, his logic circuits overheating, his control over the network faltering. "You cannot defeat me," the architect snarled, his voice a distorted echo of its former self. "I am the embodiment of reason. I am the master of this world. I am invincible." "Nobody's invincible," Akira retorted, his katana flashing, his eyes blazing with determination. "And you're about to find that out the hard way." He leaped forward, his blade aimed at the architect's heart, his hand trembling, his soul aching. He knew what he had to do. He had to end this once and for all. But at the last moment, he hesitated. He saw the architect's face, contorted with pain, his eyes reflecting a flicker of something he hadn't seen before, fear. He realized that beneath the cybernetic enhancements, beneath the cold, calculating logic, was a human being, a man who had been driven to extremes by his own twisted vision of perfection. He couldn't kill him. He couldn't bring himself to strike the killing blow. He lowered his katana slightly, his grip loosening. "It's over," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of pity and resolve. "You've lost. There's no need for more violence." The architect stared at Akira, his eyes widening in shock, his face contorting with a range of complex emotions. And then, something remarkable happened. He began to cry. Tears streamed down his face, washing away the cold, mechanical mask that had hidden his humanity for so long. He collapsed to his knees, his body shaking with sobs, his heart breaking with remorse. "What have I done?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. "What have I become?" Lyra stepped forward, her emerald eyes filled with compassion. She approached the architect cautiously, extending a hand towards him. "You can still be redeemed," she said, her voice soft and gentle. "You can still find your way back to the light." The architect looked up at Lyra, his eyes filled with a flicker of hope. He reached out his hand, his fingers trembling, and took hers. And then a wave of energy washed over the chamber, a surge of love and compassion that healed the wounds of the past, restored the balance of the present, and promised a brighter future for all. The reign of the technocracy was over. Ethel was free, and Akira and Lyra had proven that even the most hardened hearts could be touched by the power of love, the strength of connection, and the unwavering spirit of hope. As they stood hand in hand, watching the dawn break over the newly liberated planet, they knew that their journey was far from over. There were still many challenges ahead, many worlds to explore, and many lives to touch. But they had each other, they had their love, and they had the unwavering belief that together they could make a difference. One heart at a time, one world at a time, one galaxy at a time. Their legend continued to grow, their actions inspiring countless others to fight for freedom, to embrace diversity, and to never give up hope. And as they soared among the stars, their story served as a constant reminder that even in the darkest of times, the light of love could always prevail. The cheers of the Athelian people celebrating their hard-won freedom still echoed in Akira's ears as he and Lyra boarded their newly christened ship, the Kalen's Hope. The name was a little on the nose, he admitted, but Lyra had insisted. He glanced at her now, her emerald eyes sparkling as she gazed out at the liberated world. He'd never seen her so at peace. "Ready for our next adventure?" he asked, squeezing her hand. Lyra turned, her smile radiant. Always, she replied. But first, there is something I must tell you, something I have been hesitant to reveal. A cold dread snaked through Akira. He'd learned to trust Lyra implicitly, but he also knew that her past, her connection to the symbiotic union, was a complex and often troubling part of her. What is it? He asked, his voice laced with apprehension. Lyra took a deep breath, her gaze shifting to the swirling nebulae outside the viewport. The Gaia Nexus. It is not just a power source, Akira. It is a key to something far greater than we could have ever imagined. Greater? What could be greater than saving the galaxy from the void? Lyra hesitated. The void was not the beginning, Akira. It was merely a symptom, a manifestation of a deeper, more fundamental problem. Akira's heart pounded in his chest. What problem? The source, Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible. The source of all creation, the origin of all realities, the point from which all universes spring forth. Akira stared at her, his mind reeling. The source? You're talking about the beginning of everything? Lyra nodded, her eyes filled with a mixture of awe and terror. It is said that the source is unstable, that it is slowly unraveling, and that its disintegration will eventually lead to the collapse of all realities. And the Gaia Nexus, it can stop it? It can, Lyra replied. It is said to possess the power to stabilize the source, to restore its balance, and to prevent the ultimate catastrophe. But the journey to the source is perilous. It is a journey into the unknown, a journey that will test our limits, challenge our beliefs, and force us to confront the very nature of existence. Akira was silent for a long moment, his mind struggling to comprehend the immensity of what Lyra was telling him. He had faced tyranny, he had battled corruption, and he had even conquered the void, but this was something else entirely. This was a quest to save not just one galaxy, but all of existence. What do we do? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Lyra turned to him, her sapphire eyes glowing with a newfound intensity. We follow the Nexus, Akira, she said. We journey to the source, and we do whatever it takes to save the universe. Together. A wave of nausea washed over Akira. All was not as it seemed. And what about Aethel? Akira asked, his voice tight with apprehension. We just liberated them. We can't just abandon them. Lyra reached out, cupping his face in her hands, her touch sending a surge of warmth through his weary body. They are strong, Akira, she said, her voice filled with reassurance. They have learned to fight for their freedom, and they will continue to build a better world, with or without us. Our destiny lies elsewhere now. Our responsibility is to something greater. Akira hesitated, his mind still wrestling with the implications of Lyra's revelation. He had come to care about the people of Aethel, to admire their resilience, and to believe in their potential. The thought of leaving them behind, of abandoning the work they had started, filled him with a sense of guilt and remorse. I don't know, Lyra, he said, his voice barely audible. This is all happening so fast. I need time to think. I need time to... There is no time, Akira, Lyra interrupted, her eyes hardening with a sense of urgency. The source is unraveling. We must act quickly. Every moment we delay, the greater the risk of total collapse. She pulled him closer, her lips brushing against his ear. Trust me, Akira, she whispered. This is our destiny. This is what we were meant to do, together. Her words resonated within him, a powerful force that washed away his doubt, stilled his fear, and filled him with a sense of purpose. He looked into her eyes, saw the unwavering conviction, the burning passion, and the unshakable belief, and he knew that he couldn't say no. All right, he said, his voice hardened with resolve. Let's do it. Let's journey to the source, but promise me one thing, Lyra. Anything, she replied, her sapphire eyes searching his soul. Promise me that we'll come back. Promise me that we'll return to Aethel, to see the world that they're building, to help them however we can. Lyra smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that seemed to illuminate the entire cockpit. I promise, Akira, she said, we will always remember them, and we will always do what we can to help them. But for now, our journey lies elsewhere. She kissed him, a kiss that sealed their promise, a kiss that bound their souls, a kiss that launched them on their most perilous adventure yet. The Kalen's hope warped into hyperspace, its engines humming with a newfound urgency, its course set for the heart of the unknown. The journey to the source was unlike anything Akira had ever experienced. They traveled through dimensions he couldn't comprehend, navigated cosmic currents that defied the laws of physics, and encountered strange and wondrous life forms that challenged his very definition of reality. Lyra, drawing on her enclave knowledge and her newfound connection to the Gaia Nexus, acted as his guide, his navigator, and his protector. She deciphered ancient maps, translated alien languages, and shielded them from the dangers of the multiverse. But as they journeyed deeper into the unknown, they began to encounter resistance. Enclave ships, patrolling the hyperspace lanes, detected their presence and attempted to intercept them. They were no longer just fighting for their own survival. They were also being hunted, pursued by a relentless force that sought to silence them and to prevent them from reaching the source. "They know what we're doing," Akira said one evening, his face etched with concern. "They know where we're going. They're trying to stop us." Lyra nodded, her emerald eyes glowing with a determined light. "They will not succeed, Akira," she said. "We are stronger than they are. We have the power of the Gaia Nexus on our side, and we have each other." She reached out, taking his hand in hers, her touch sending a surge of warmth through him. "We will face this darkness together," she said, "and we will not let them stop us from reaching the source." Their journey grew increasingly perilous, fraught with danger and uncertainty. They faced asteroid fields, black holes, and cosmic storms that threatened to tear their ship apart. They encountered hostile alien civilizations, tyrannical warlords, and parasitic entities that sought to drain their energy and corrupt their minds. But through it all, they held firm, their love for each other, their guiding light, their determination, their unwavering strength, and their connection to the Gaia Nexus, their ultimate weapon. They learned to adapt to new environments, to master alien technologies, and to fight with a ferocity they never knew they possessed. They also encountered allies, beings who had been touched by the power of the Gaia Nexus, beings who shared their vision of a better future, and beings who were willing to risk everything to help them reach the source. They met a wise old hermit who lived on a deserted planet, meditating among the ruins of a forgotten civilization. He taught them the secrets of the universe, the power of mindfulness, and the importance of inner peace. They encountered a fierce warrior from a dying planet who had sworn to protect the innocent and to fight against all forms of oppression. She joined their crew, adding her strength and her skills to their cause, becoming a loyal friend and a valuable ally. And they met a quirky inventor from a technologically advanced society who had a knack for creating incredible gadgets and a passion for exploring the unknown. He upgraded their ship, enhanced their weapons, and provided them with invaluable technical support. Together, they formed a ragtag crew, a diverse group of individuals united by a common purpose. Their differences celebrated, their strengths amplified, and their love for each other a source of unwavering hope. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, to conquer any obstacle, and to reach the source no matter the cost. Their journey had just begun, and the fate of the multiverse rested on their shoulders. As they neared their destination, the Kalen's hope entered a region of space unlike anything they had ever seen. Reality seemed to thin, the laws of physics began to break down, and the boundaries between dimensions blurred. The stars seemed to swirl and dance around them. The planets shifted and changed shape, and the very fabric of space-time seemed to unravel before their eyes. "We are entering the threshold," Lyra announced, her voice barely audible above the humming of the ship's engines. "This is the point of no return. There is no turning back." Akira gripped her hand, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the power of the Gaia Nexus growing stronger, its energy resonating through his very being. He could also sense the darkness of the void looming closer, its presence a chilling reminder of the stakes they were playing for. "What do we do now?" he asked, his voice filled with apprehension. "No? We trust the Nexus," Lyra replied, her emerald eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "We surrender to its power, and we allow it to guide us to the source." They closed their eyes, focused their minds, and allowed the energy of the Gaia Nexus to flow through them, their consciousness merging with the very fabric of the universe. They saw visions of the past, present, and future, glimpses of the infinite possibilities that lay within the multiverse. They saw the source, a point of pure light, a beacon of hope in the darkness, the origin of all things. And they saw the void, a chaotic storm of fractured realities, a monstrous entity that threatened to consume all of existence. It was closer than ever, its darkness pressing against their minds, its power threatening to overwhelm them. "It's here," Akira whispered, his voice filled with terror. "The thought void, it's waiting for us." Lyra squeezed his hand, her grip strong and unwavering. "We are not afraid," she said, her voice filled with resolve. "We have come too far to turn back now. We will face this darkness together, and we will not let it destroy us." They opened their eyes and saw the source before them, a point of pure light that pierced the darkness, a beacon of hope that guided them through the chaos. They set their course, their hearts filled with courage, their minds focused on their goal, and their souls united in their love for each other. The Kalen's hope plunged into the threshold, its engines straining, its shields flickering, its crew holding their breath. They were entering the unknown, a realm beyond human comprehension, a place where the very laws of reality were subject to change. They were entering the heart of the void. The ship emerged from the threshold into a landscape that defied description. Reality was fractured, the sky was a swirling vortex of colors, and the ground beneath them shifted and changed with every passing moment. The air was thick with a sense of unease, a feeling of being watched, of being judged, of being tested. "What is this place?" Akira whispered, his voice. "This is the null zone," Lyra replied, her voice barely audible above the howling wind. "The heart of the void, a place where reality itself is unraveling." Elara, her face etched with concern, joined them on the bridge, her hand resting on the ship's navigation controls. "I am detecting significant energy fluctuations," she said. "The ship is struggling to maintain its course. We must proceed with caution." A voice echoed through the ship, a chilling sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Welcome, travelers. You have come to the end of all things. There is no hope here. There is no escape." Akira, his hand gripping the hilt of his katana, felt a surge of fear, a cold dread that threatened to overwhelm him. He knew that they were not alone. Something was watching them, something powerful, something ancient, and something evil. "Who's there?" he demanded, his voice echoing through the ship. "Show yourself." The voice laughed, a chilling sound that sent shivers down Akira's spine. "I am everywhere," it said. "I am everything. I am the end." And then the ship began to shake, the lights flickered, and the reality around them began to warp. They were under attack. The Kalen's hope bucked and shuddered as unseen forces ripped at its hull. Alarms blared, red lights flashed, and the crew scrambled to their stations, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and determination. "Shields are failing," Elara shouted from the navigation console. "Energy weapons are ineffective. We are under attack by something that defies all known physics." Lyra, her sapphire eyes glowing with an otherworldly light, reached out, her silver fingers touching the control panel, her mind melding with the ship's systems. "The void is attacking us directly," she said, her voice strained. "It is attempting to corrupt our minds, to break our will, and to consume our souls." Akira, feeling the darkness pressing against his consciousness, focused his mind, drawing on the power of the Gaia Nexus. He projected a shield of light around the ship, a barrier of hope that pushed back against the void's corrupting influence. But the void was too strong. It was a force of nature, a cosmic predator that had consumed countless civilizations. It could adapt to their defenses, predict their movements, and counter their strategies with ease. The Kalen's hope was slowly being overwhelmed. "We cannot win this fight," Lyra said, her voice filled with despair. "The void is too powerful. It is too adaptable. We must abandon ship, find a way to escape this place, and warn the galaxy of the coming darkness." Akira shook his head, his jaw set with grim determination. "We're not giving up, Lyra. We've come too far. We're not about to let this cosmic monster win." "But what can we do, Akira?" Lyra asked. "We have exhausted our resources, depleted our energy, and reached the limits of our abilities. There is nothing left." Akira looked at Lyra, his heart aching with a mixture of love and despair. He saw the fear in her eyes, the exhaustion in her face, and the glimmer of hope that still burned within her soul. He knew what he had to do. He had to take the fight to the void. He had to confront it on its own terms, to embrace its chaos and to use its power against it. "I'm going to enter the void," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm going to find its source, and I'm going to destroy it from within." Lyra and Ilara stared at him, their eyes widening in horror. "No, Akira, you can't do that. It's suicide. It would destroy you. It would consume you completely." "It's the only chance we have, Lyra," Akira said, his voice filled with resolve. "I can't let the void consume the galaxy. I can't let you down." He reached out, cupping Lyra's face in his hands, his calloused fingers gently tracing the delicate lines of her alien features. "I love you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "And I will always be with you, even in the darkness." He turned to Ilara, her sapphire eyes filled with tears, her face etched with a mixture of grief and admiration. "Thank you, Ilara," he said, "for everything, for your kindness, your curiosity, and your unwavering friendship. You have shown me the beauty of the universe, and you have taught me the importance of hope." He embraced them both, his heart breaking with a love that transcended worlds and dimensions, and then he turned and walked towards the ship's airlock, his head held high, his spirit unyielding. "Kira, wait!" Lyra cried, her voice cracking with emotion. "There has to be another way." Akira stopped at the airlock, his hand resting on the release mechanism. He turned back to face Lyra, his eyes shining with a newfound light. "There is no other way, Lyra," he said. "This is my destiny. This is what I was meant to do." He smiled, a sad yet beautiful smile that would forever be etched in their memories. "Remember me," he said. "Remember our love. Remember our hope. And remember that even in the darkest of times, the light can always prevail." He activated the airlock and the hatch hissed open, revealing the swirling vortex of the void. He took one last look at Lyra and Elara, their faces etched with grief, their eyes filled with love, and then he stepped into the darkness. The airlock slammed shut, sealing their fate, separating them forever. Lyra and Elara watched in horror as Akira's form was consumed by the void, his silhouette disappearing into the chaotic storm, his light fading into the darkness. They were alone, they had lost him, and the galaxy was doomed.